website I posted for you to kind of show you some different ideas. So if you look at the blue things with arrows, what word do you see in each of the arrowed things? Cartilage. So in your respiratory system, blue means cartilage. Every time. Blue, you gotta say the word cartilage. The problem is you have to remember the first part, or you're gonna get them all wrong. So when you're doing these models, find the blue stuff and say, okay, that's a cartilage, what's the difference? So it's not the type of cartilage, it's the name of the location of the cartilage. So I'm gonna show you as best I can with my voice here. All right, so this is my voice box. Bleh. So my air is coming this way. That big one in the front that you feel right, your Adam's apple, that's called your thyroid because your thyroid lives on it, that gland right there. So that's the thyroid's cartilage in blue. If you're an EMT, where your larynx joins your trachea, that's called the cricoid. Cricoid pressure, that's the next one down. It makes a ridge. Push on that hard enough and gag. But you got your big shield in front, Adam's apple. Cricoid is next. These are the trachea's rings. So tracheal cartilages. So when you see blue, you got the thyroid blue, the next blue, this blue. You're just naming the location of the blues. Make sense? So you get some hints. You see blue, that's your friend. It's a cartilage. Make sense? But there's more. We're gonna turn it around. Boom. On the back of the larynx, if you open them up, there'll be things on the inside as well. So I'm gonna go down here a bit, like this. What? Make it bigger?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I can do that. I don't know how to make it do that. I can't. I don't know. Slideshow? Oh, look at you!
Oh, yeah.
You can tell I know PowerPoint. All right. So let's try this. So this is opening my voice box from the side. So you have to do a 3D kind of deal. This is the front. I spin it. That's over here. So thyroid, right? If this is the next one down, cricoid, that's going to be down here, the base. Right? If these are the rings down here, they're going to be the rings over here. The visualizer, right? There's one more blue. That one. What is that thing sticking up in your voice box? Keeps you from choking.
Oh, I know.
Starts with an E. Epiglottis from 231, week 2. What tissue is epiglottis made out of? Cartilage. So that's the epiglottal cartilage. You can only see the inside. That's the epiglottis cartilage. Thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, tracheal cartilage. Make sense? So you get 4 answers just by knowing it's blue and giving it a good name. So the most common places people kind of trip up on the larynx is forgetting that blues are cartilage or getting them all flipped around. Once you know the cartilage is, that thing on the left becomes actually kind of easy. If you look at your unit objectives, which I somehow lost somewhere. Here we go. Right here. You'll notice that we just did, cartilage, 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 cartilage. Notice over here, there's these other words. Ligament, ligament, ligament. All right, if you go back over here, you can figure out. If you look between the cartilages, there's a piece of tissue. So for example, where this funny looking piece of glue is, right there. That is a ligament between this cartilage and this cartilage. How would you say the cartilage between the thyroid and the cricoid? Very hard it is. Cricothyroid cartilage, or ligament. So you say the two things and put the word ligament between them. So the cricothyroid ligament is the ligament between the cricoid and the thyroid. I'm going to die. There's also one here, cricotracheal, between the cricoid and the trachea. This one's the thyroid hyoid, because between the thyroid and the hyoid. So if you know your cartilages, you also know the things between them. You're just using the words twice. Does that make sense? So find your blues. You got 7 answers just by knowing which blue you're staring at. Make sense? Okay, the other thing is you look on the right, you look over here where my mouse is, you'll see 2 little ridges inside your voice box that I'm using right now. Those are your vocal cords. There is a difference between them. So you look on your list, you have to be very careful on your answer what you tell me. You look on the far right here, there's a vocal fold or true chord, and there's a vestibular fold or a false chord. Hint from dad teacher, pick one or the other. You just say vocal vestibular or say true or false. You start mixing them too much, you're going to confuse yourself and crash. Right? So I learned true and false. I never get it wrong that way. But be careful that you don't confuse the two, because it does make a big difference on your score which one it is. Which of those is the true one, A or B? What's the other one? B. The A is the fake one, it protects the real one underneath. So A is the vestibular, B is the focal, or false is over true. But they're always in that relationship. But they both look similar, and you gotta make sure you remember that one is real and one is fake, in that sense. Make sense? So those are your vocal cords or vocal folds, or true or false. So the one I'm talking with is my true, barely, and the one that got, when I cough and gets all beat up is the fake. Make sense? So those are inside. So your trachea, larynx, most people can get, they get the blue stuff correct. When you get down into the lung, life is exciting, because you look where these blue arrows are. These are your bronchi, your airways. Let's do a slideshow, you taught me that, right? Look at that, I learned something, I'm trainable, okay. So, every time it splits, you give it a name. So, your trachea is C, that's your airway. What is 15 if it's the first branch off the trachea? What are those tubes in your lungs called? Bronchi, or bronchus. Those are the first ones, so therefore they are the primary or main. You can say either way. So it's the main bronchi or the primary bronchi. Make sense? Okay, if these are the primary, what are the next splits down then?
Secondary?
Secondary, which can also be called lobars. That's another way. So you have trachea, primary, secondary, or trachea, main, lobars, because they go for each lobe. Okay, follow the thinking. If this is trachea, this is primary, these are secondary, what are these over here? Tertiary or segmental. So every time it forks, just give a new name. Okay, so primary, secondary, tertiary, or main, lobar, segmental. 1, 2, 3. Make sense? It's the same word, it's just a different branch of it every time. So when you get to your bronchi, find the split at the 15. This is where you cough from, this right here, by the way. Find that, and just count first part, second split, third. By the way, the number counts the lobes. There's 2 lobes on this side, 3 lobes on that side. So you can kind of see it. So find the tubing and just follow the forking, and you get it right. Make sense? Okay, so you got blues, you got ridges, you got forks in the road. Those are the main places students sometimes trip up if they don't kind of follow the thinking. That make sense? Then I can click on those. Look at that. All right. And that's all I kind of want to say about the models. There's a few other things I can help you with. But if you look at the bottom of your list, before my voice dies, you have histology to learn right here. I'm going to walk you through some slides. There's only 2 slides, but you have to catch on to what you're seeing, or it'll become very difficult to kind of get your bearings. So I'm going to show you this one right here. We're going to slide it over. Boom. Okay, that's a tube in my lungs. What do you call a tube in your lungs? Bronchi. Sure, that works. This could also be a trachea. Any of the tubes are the same. The difference is size, because the layout is the same. Where's the air going to be? In here. So this is the air, lumen. Okay. If you take your scientific eye and notice that there's layers, like the blood vessels. There's a layer here. There's kind of a layer, about the yay. And there's a layer here. So all of them would have the same layering. So the trick would be, if this is where the air is, what do we call the lining touching the air? That would be full of mucus, so we call it the mucosa. Mucosa touches the air. This is the mucosa layer. Okay, biology majors, this layer is under the mucosa. How would you say that? Submucosa, because it's under the mucosa. We're biologists. So, air here, mucosa here, submucosa to about yay. That out there is the outside. We call that adventitia. Why? It's just the word they use. If you notice this weird tissue here, that's cartilage. Remember the blue rings? This is what the blue ring would look like on a slide. Those are cartilage, part of the submucosa. So my air is in the center, there's cartilage around it, and then there's my body outside of it. All that changes is the proportion as you get bigger or smaller. Does that make sense? They're all in the same layers. So if I do this one here, here's a close-up. Let's do a slide for next week's quiz. I spy with my little eye a layer right here. This is mucosa. I spy a layer here. I spy a tissue here. Cartilage, very good. What's in there? Very good. That's what you're going to see in all of them. The difference is the proportions and how much you see. Okay, so if I get smaller and smaller, like this, all that's changing is I see less and less cartilage. I just see more and more space. So on this one here, if I take my mouse here, my mouse is covering the mucosa, the inner edge. There's a little bit of cartilage there, so very little cartilage, but I'm in submucosa. Adventitious out there. So I'm just getting thinner and thinner as I go in my body until I get here. So I'll that one up there. I'll do another one here. That thing in the upper picture is a bronchiole. Bronchiole, sound Italian. If you notice, something is different. That difference is this red line right here. So the other ones had cartilage. That's not cartilage. You wonder what that red line looks like from 231 week 2? Let's see. Single nuclide, pointed end, involuntary. Say smooth muscle.
Smooth muscle, yeah.
Smooth muscle. So these have muscle in there so they can change size. So I took the cartilage away and started putting a little bit of muscle in there so when I cough up my guts, they work. But that's a bronchiole. It gets thinner and thinner with no cartilage. When I was in college, bronchus has cartilage, bronchiole does not. That's the difference you'll see. So if I see that, that's a big bronchiole. If I see that, that's a big bronchus, because that cartilage tells me I'm an us. And that no cartilage tells me I'm an ole. That makes sense? They're the same layering. Okay, when you know it's a bronchiole, you got two more things to figure out, which is this picture. Can someone find the bronchiole for me? This. So it's weird. It's coming at you and then turns, so you're kind of seeing through. There's a bronchiole all the way to here. But notice it gets thinner and thinner as it goes through. The air is getting closer and closer to your body. So as it goes through your body, eventually gets so thin, it actually can break into the little cavities. Okay, once I can get into your body, I'm respiratory because I'm exchanging air. So this is a bronchiole. These would be a respiratory bronchiole because the air can start penetrating those sides. Same tube, just really thin, thicker. Make sense? It's just a difference in chaos. Once you get past that, you got the circles. I'm going to show you the circles by doing this one right here. Here's a close-up of those circles. So bronchiole, respiratory, over here, really thin. And then this is where my blood is, right there. So I'm going to be getting air into my blood at the very end. So as you're going down in your lungs, the tubes get thinner and they get less distinctive as they get smaller. So on our lung slide, you should be able to spot, depending on where you look, probably a bronchus. You might see a bronchiole, you might see the A word, your air sacs. It depends on where you look, and they look differently depending on their sizes, but you can spot which ones they are. Make sense? So the hardest thing for you is no lung slide's the same. So you may have lots of bronchi and no bronchioles. You may have tons of bronchioles and have no bronchus. Depends on where they cut you. But you should be able to spot when they change. The most important thing for your eye is when does it look different than the last one, right? And then you can discern. So cartilage or not, then thin or not is your choice. That make sense? Okay, so if we go back to our objectives, I just ran you through the trachea and bronchus. They all have the same layers. I just ran you through basically a lung, and those are your basic two slides. Can I spot the layers when I see them? Can I know which kind of word I'm using when I'm in the tube? Make sense? So you have basically 2 slides, 3 models. Next week is your last name it, claim it. Your lab next week after the quiz is relatively short. It's a paper pencil thing. Just mentally you can zone out because the week thereafter is your lab exam. So next week after your lab quiz, you're gonna have time to basically review your lab exam again, or just bail early or whatever, and then the final week of class is your lab exam. Make sense? So lab is over in 2 weeks. Hopefully I'm better by then. Make sense? All right, I'm gonna be quiet because that's all I got. So use your time wisely. I will assist you as best I can by popping up like